Hi everyone, welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. I'm Emily.
And I'm Nick. Today we're diving into something so many English learners feel but don't always talk about, that awkward moment when you know the grammar, you've studied the rules, maybe even aced a few tests, but when it's time to speak, you just freeze.
Yeah, and it's frustrating, right? Because on paper, you're doing everything right. You've got the past tense, the conditionals, the articles, you know the language. But when you're face to face with someone, or even just trying to join a conversation, your mind goes totally blank.
And it makes you wonder, what's going on? Why doesn't all that knowledge show up when you need it most?
Well, the thing is, speaking and studying are two completely different activities. Knowing grammar in your head is one thing, but actually using it in real time, with someone watching, while you're trying to express a thought and manage your nerves. That's a whole different skill.
Exactly. It's like learning all the rules of driving from a book and then sitting behind the wheel for the first time. Your brain might know what to do, but your hands are shaky and your heart's racing.
And that pressure, wanting to sound correct, not wanting to make a mistake, can cause your brain to shut down. Even if you know the grammar, you start second-guessing every word, every verb tense, every little thing.
So freezing isn't about a lack of grammar. It's about pressure, fear of judgment, and sometimes a lack of speaking practice in relaxed, everyday situations. You don't need more grammar, you need more permission to speak freely. Imperfectly. Honestly. Messily.
And one of the biggest shifts happens when you stop trying to sound perfect, and start focusing on just connecting. The goal of speaking isn't to impress, it's to be understood. And that's possible, even if you get a few things wrong.
Totally. And let's not forget, native speakers mess up grammar all the time too. We change tenses mid-sentence, we start sentences we never finish, we interrupt ourselves, it's natural. Real conversation is messy. It's not textbook perfect.
Right? But what most learners experience is this habit of thinking while trying to speak, translating in their heads, checking grammar, remembering vocabulary, and all that cognitive load can make your brain feel overwhelmed.
It's like having too many tabs open on your mental browser. And that's why even though you know the grammar, you freeze. Your brain's too busy trying to do everything perfectly all at once.
What helps is repetition and exposure. Not just in study mode, but in casual, low-pressure speaking. Shadowing English audio, reading out loud, having short conversations, even with yourself. That starts building the bridge between your knowledge and your voice.
And once you get used to producing language, not just recognizing it, your brain starts trusting the process more. You won't need to think about every little rule, you'll just speak, and the grammar will follow more naturally over time.
It's about building muscle memory, really. Just like you don't think about how to tie your shoes anymore. You've done it so many times, your hands just know what to do. That's what eventually happens with speaking English. But it only happens if you give yourself the space to practice regularly, without the pressure of being perfect.
And I think that's what a lot of learners miss. They wait until they feel ready, until they've mastered more grammar or memorized more vocabulary. But the truth is, the readiness comes from the doing, not the waiting.
Exactly. You could study grammar for years and still freeze when you speak, if you don't give yourself safe spaces to actually use it. And that's the thing, you have to use your English to make it feel like yours. It's not just something you learn, it's something you live.
And let's be honest, the first few times might feel a bit awkward. You might stumble. You might pause too much. You might forget a word and have to explain around it. But that's not failure, that's speaking. That's real, and it's more than enough.
You can be fluent and still search for words. You can be fluent and still make mistakes. Fluency is not the absence of error, it's the presence of confidence, even with the error.
And that's why freezing doesn't mean you're bad at English. It just means your brain is still getting used to turning all that passive knowledge into something active. And the more you practice, gently, often, consistently, the easier that transformation becomes.
And one thing that helps a lot is creating little moments in your day where English just happens. You don't need an audience. You don't need a perfect sentence. You just need those tiny chances to speak out loud. Like narrating what you're doing while cooking, or talking to yourself while folding laundry.
Yeah, or even reacting out loud to something you read or watch. Like, that's interesting, or I wouldn't do that, or what does that even mean? Just basic, natural reactions in English. You're building fluency in those moments without even realizing it.
And I think we sometimes forget how powerful low-pressure repetition really is. You don't need a long conversation every day. Even 5 minutes of relaxed speaking can change your relationship with the language.
It's not about cramming. It's about making English a natural part of your world. Speaking isn't a performance, it's a habit. And the more you treat it like a normal part of your life, the more automatic it becomes.
So, if you're freezing when it's time to speak, even though you know the grammar, it's not a sign of failure. It's just a sign that your speaking muscle needs more practice, more patience, and more permission to not be perfect.
Exactly. Give yourself time. Speak out loud. Get comfortable being a little uncomfortable. It's part of the process. And over time, those freezes? They'll start to melt away.
And I think one of the most helpful mindsets to adopt is this: you don't need to earn your right to speak English. You don't need to pass some invisible test, or reach a certain level before you're allowed to open your mouth. If you know how to say something, say it. If you don't, try anyway. That's how you grow.
That's such a good point. A lot of learners carry this pressure like they have to prove something every time they speak. But imagine if we treated language learning like we treat learning a musical instrument. You wouldn't expect a beginner to play a perfect song, you'd expect them to practice, right?
Exactly. And just like a musician builds skill through small, imperfect repetitions, you build fluency through regular, imperfect speaking. You don't get fluent before you start speaking, you get fluent by speaking.
And not just speaking in formal situations, but speaking in your real life. Ordering food. Asking someone how they are doing. Saying, I'm tired, or I love this song, or what's the word for? That's the stuff that makes English yours.
You don't need to wait for the right moment, the perfect word, or the ideal sentence structure. The truth is, fluency grows fastest in imperfect environments. And the more you allow yourself to show up as a learner, the quicker you'll become a speaker.
So if you're listening and thinking, I know the grammar, but I still freeze, just know that you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. You're just in the phase where your knowledge is learning how to move. Let it move slowly. Let it move clumsily. But let it move.
Yes, because speaking isn't about getting everything right. It's about building rhythm. And rhythm comes with repetition, not hesitation. The more you speak, the more your brain stops needing to pause and check if it's allowed. It starts to trust that you can figure things out as you go.
And part of that is learning how to recover when things don't go smoothly. Like when you forget a word, or use the wrong tense, or get stuck mid-sentence. That's not failure, that's practice. And recovering is actually one of the most powerful skills in speaking any language.
I love that. Because fluent speakers aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who can keep going through the mistakes. They don't freeze, because they've taught themselves to relax, to paraphrase, or just smile and move on.
So what if you forgot a preposition? Who cares if your sentence came out a bit jumbled? If you were understood, you succeeded. And even if you weren't, you tried. That's what matters. That's what builds confidence.
And sometimes all it takes is reminding yourself, I don't have to speak perfectly. I just have to speak honestly. It's not about proving you're advanced, it's about showing up with what you've got, today, right now.
The grammar's in there. The knowledge is real. It's just waiting for your voice to let it breathe. So even if you freeze today, even if you stumble, don't give up. That moment is still part of your progress.
So if you're in that place where you know the grammar, but still freeze, please remember, that's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're on the edge of growing. Freezing is part of it. It means you care. It means your brain is learning to bridge the gap between knowledge and action.
And that bridge isn't built by more rules. It's built by gentle, regular speaking. Out loud. With yourself. With others. Even if it's messy. Especially when it's messy. Because that's how fluency really forms.
You've got more inside you than you think. Trust it. Give it time. And let yourself be a learner, because learners become speakers, and speakers become confident with every single try.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the British Accent Podcast. Wherever you are in your English journey, we're proud of you. Keep going. You're doing better than you think.
We'll see you in the next one. Until then, speak softly, speak bravely, and don't wait for perfect.